What happens when one of country music's biggest stars walks onto a morning show set and refuses to play nice? What we witnessed wasn't your typical celebrity interview gone slightly awkward. This was a full-scale collision between two massive personalities, broadcast live to millions of viewers who couldn't believe what they were seeing. Faith Hill, known for her southern charm and polished reputation, showed a side of herself that morning nobody expected. And Michael Strahan, usually the king of calm, found himself in a moment too raw to smooth over. It began like any other Good Morning America interview. Faith Hill arriving to promote her new album and share casual tour talk. The studio was bright, warm, buzzing with energy. Michael sat ready in his chair, coffee in hand, wearing that trademark grin that makes every tense room melt. But when Faith walked onto that set, her presence sucked every drop of warmth from the room. Her smile was tight, posture stiff, eyes fixed ahead. She shook Michael's hand without eye contact and sat down silently. Already the energy felt unnatural, but Michael pushed forward with his well-practiced charm, welcoming her warmly, praising her new album, showering her with admiration. Faith gave him a quiet, "Thank you." And that was all. No elaboration, no playful charm, no celebrity rhythm of banter and gratitude. Michael blinked through the silence, recalibrating. He asked about her 3-year break between albums, expecting passion or excitement. Instead, Faith shot back. "I didn't take a step back. I was living my life. Creating art isn't about churning out product." The temperature in the room dropped further. Producers behind the camera froze. Michael's co-hosts exchanged subtle glances. Faith Hill had come in hot, and nobody knew why. Yet Michael tried again, complimenting her album's emotional depth, hoping to anchor her mood. Faith's frustration sharpened as soon as he referenced the emotional tone of track 7. Her voice turned colder, accusing the media of projecting narratives about her personal life. Michael reminded her, gently, that fans were curious, not malicious. But Faith pushed back harder, claiming interviews were traps, designed to pry into her marriage and private struggles. Michael held his ground, insisting he asked nothing invasive. That's when Faith accused him of using her own song to dig for gossip. Michael denied the intent, calling her out for assuming a hostile motive. The exchange sparked something electric. Faith leaned forward, claiming she knew media games from years of experience and wasn't about to fall into another one. Michael tried to de-escalate, but Faith clearly arrived carrying something heavy: resentment, exhaustion, anger. And from that moment forward, it was obvious this interview wasn't going to be anything close to normal. It was personal, emotional, and dangerously unpredictable. From the moment that first icy response left Faith's mouth, Michael sensed trouble forming beneath every syllable. Still, he remained professional. He praised her body of work, reminded viewers of Faith's long legacy, and continued steering the conversation back to her album, trying desperately to restore flow. But Faith wasn't grabbing any lifelines. She insisted that every interview, every question, every media angle was exploitation disguised as professionalism. Her voice trembled with frustration, accusing the industry of twisting artists into commodities. Michael's co-hosts attempted small rescue bridges, turning the conversation toward the album tour, trying to bring a lighter mood. Faith didn't even look at them. She stayed locked on Michael, determined to confront something deeper than morning show small talk. Michael reminded her that millions of people were watching. Faith didn't care. She was on a mission to dismantle the structure she believed the show represented. She spoke about 30 years of smiling through interviews, answering carefully, worded questions that turned into headlines she never intended to write. To her, track 7 wasn't just a song. It was emotional armor being used against her. Michael challenged her interpretation, explaining that music interviews always explore inspiration. But Faith wasn't having it. She interpreted everything through the lens of intrusion. She believed Michael wanted to drag her personal life into the spotlight, even if he never directly said so. When Michael stated she came in with attitude, the air snapped. Faith rose up verbally, pointing out that fame doesn't erase privacy. She demanded respect for boundaries, rarely granted to women in the industry, especially those married to other icons. Michael pushed back harder now, insisting she was creating the conflict. He argued he had done nothing more than praise her work. Faith answered that praise itself sometimes hides manipulation. One co-host attempted again to pivot toward concert talk. Faith silenced her instantly, saying she wanted to continue with Michael. This wasn't about promotion anymore. Faith was exposing her resentment openly. Resentment toward media, labels, expectations, and the weight of being watched. Michael told her that interviews require communication, not confrontation. Faith countered that she was tired of performing, emotional labor for entertainment, tired of being told to smile, tired of carrying the burden of being likable. Michael sat stunned at the raw truth spilling out. For a moment, the tension seemed to soften. Something vulnerable flickered behind Faith's anger, pain, exhaustion, loneliness. But before anything could shift back toward calm, Faith reignited the flame, declaring morning shows no longer cared about depth. They cared about viral drama. This conversation wasn't an interview anymore. It had become a philosophical war about fame, privacy, and the machinery behind celebrity culture. Michael leaned in, lowering his voice, trying to turn confrontation into connection. If Faith didn't want to talk about her music, he asked, then why come on the show at all? Her response stunned the room, because she didn't truly have a choice. She spoke about label pressure, contractual obligations, marketing teams, and the invisible weight behind every album release. Promotion, she explained, wasn't optional, it was demanded. Decline interviews long enough, and the public labels you difficult. Accept them, and they peel into your private life. Either way, the artist loses. Michael softened. For the first time, he saw not hostility, but exhaustion. He invited her to drop the performance and speak honestly, human to human. Faith answered by describing emotional burnout, the pressure to appear perfect, the fear of vulnerability, the constant expectation to deliver content for others to dissect. The studio fell into a stunned silence. Crew members held their breath, witnessing something rarely seen. A celebrity stripping away polish and exposing pain on live television. Michael assured Faith he wasn't the enemy, that he wasn't searching for scandal, that he simply wanted connection and understanding. But Faith wasn't convinced trust could exist in this space. Years of media manipulation had built thick walls around her heart. Michael's tone shifted from comforting to frustrated. He reminded her the show wasn't designed to trap artists, but to celebrate them. Faith countered by calling the entire structure a machine, timed, scripted, produced to the second. Michael told her that professionalism wasn't manipulation. It was respect. Faith said respect shouldn't require emotional sacrifice. Neither seemed willing to yield. The tension escalated again. Michael defended the people behind the cameras, the hardworking crew, the producers who spent hours preparing, the staff who showed up long before sunrise. He said Faith was disrespecting their time and effort. Faith argued she wasn't attacking individuals, but the larger system failing everyone stuck inside it. The debate spiraled into something philosophical, an argument about fame and identity rather than music. Faith said she spent years giving and giving while the world demanded more. Michael said millions would kill for the opportunities she had. Faith answered, opportunity without autonomy isn't a gift. It's a cage. And suddenly, it became clear this wasn't about Michael at all. She was railing against decades of pressure, judgment, self-doubt, and the burden of being Faith Hill. Michael looked exhausted now too. Both of them were fighting ghosts larger than the conversation itself. The boiling point arrived when the emotional debate slipped from abstract philosophy into personal accusation. Michael insisted Faith was misdirecting years of resentment onto him. Faith insisted morning shows like his benefited from a culture that punished boundaries. The crew behind the cameras stood frozen. Co-hosts didn't dare interrupt. Producers hovered just outside frame, unsure when to step in. Millions at home watched live, unaware they were witnessing a moment morning television would never forget. Faith declared the industry thrived on invasion, reminding Michael how interviews often pushed for marriage gossip. Michael repeated he had not mentioned her marriage once. Faith said he didn't need to. Everyone knew what track 7 implied. Michael argued she was projecting. Faith accused him of pretending innocence. The exchange grew sharper, louder, hotter. It wasn't anger anymore. It was two people stripped raw. When Faith leaned forward and said artists were treated like products, Michael's last thread of patience snapped. He raised his voice, something he almost never did on air. He told her she was attacking him for doing his job. He reminded her she agreed to be there. He pointed out she had contributed nothing but hostility. Faith fired back that pushing back against broken systems wasn't hostility, it was honesty. Michael looked around the studio, eyes frustrated and tired, then finally turned toward the camera and announced a commercial break. As soon as the show cut away, he stood, removed his microphone, and told Faith the segment was over. She stared at him in disbelief, asking if he was kicking her off. Michael said the interview ended itself. He was just acknowledging it. Faith rose, removing her mic, chin high and shoulders tense. She said she would rather leave than continue pretending. Michael told her the conversation was never a game. Faith insisted he still didn't understand. Her publicist rushed in, trying to calm the moment, urging Faith backstage. Faith ignored her. She gave Michael one last stare, equal parts fury and hurt, and walked off the set. Michael sat back down heavily, rubbing his hands over his face, knowing the world had just changed how it viewed him, how it viewed morning shows, and how it viewed Faith Hill. When cameras returned, Michael wore his professional smile again, but viewers could see the fracture beneath. The show continued flawlessly, weather, cooking, friendly guest chatter. But every segment felt different, awkward, hollow, tense. Online, the clip exploded instantly. Millions debated who was right, who was wrong, and what truth really lay behind Faith Hill's storm. And long after the episode ended, one question lingered across the industry. Was Faith Hill having a breakdown, or finally telling the truth the world wasn't ready to hear?